Hi everyone, welcome back. I am going to unmute us, and then if you want to mute yourself again, please, that would be great. Okay, I think we're ready to dive right in. I know that a few people had some scheduling conflicts today, so we'll get started. One thing that I should have mentioned before, if you can't make it live, just always make sure that you register, because that's the only way that we have it set up that you can get the recording after and then be able to complete the CEC. So if like a few people, it happened this month that they weren't able to make it and they hadn't registered. I'm sorry, last month, but like I was able to get on the list, right? So if that ever happens, don't worry about it. But if you want to just get in the habit, please, of signing up every time, then you'll make sure you're always going to be eligible for the CECs. Okay. So today we're going to continue where we left off last time and then get into some of the secondary variables. We'll start with questions, then finish up rest and tempo, moving on to progressions, order, section, how to use everything, and I hope we'll have a little bit of time to get started talking about the split. So we had a really great question come in of why is 1-rep max testing not more common in our industry? I think the answer, like this is my feeling on it, right? This is a subjective answer, but I think that it has to do with just the evolution of our industry, thinking of how it started. It wasn't intended for general health, for the general population, right? Like it started with bodybuilding. So I think it kind of grew out of that. So there was never really a moment where we had a centralized body that said, okay, what is the best structure for this? What is the most effective? We don't have any regulation that requires standards throughout the industry, like all the certs that are not NCCA accredited, they could do whatever they want, right? So I think a lot of that kind of plays into it. Without having anybody saying this is what must be taught, I don't know if it's ever going to become standard. I hope that we can move that kind of forward together as a group. That's one of my goals professionally. I think the other thing is a tendency with lifting to just use RPE. We know it's effective. It's easy. It's really easy to adapt, and I still like it in those situations, but I still think we're better to just always start with a science-based calculation that's not going to be guessing. It just kind of validates where we're at. So I think there are pockets where it is more common. Like in my life, it happens a lot with athletes in the recruiting process. Colleges want to know what their 3-rep max is for benching, squatting, like deadlift. Usually that's it, but it is an integral part of it then, but I think also only because people know that there's a direct correlation between this and performance. So I think where it becomes more evident, then it's worth putting more time into. Okay, yeah, so I would love if we could just kind of get this more standardized in our industry where at least people know it's an option, even if you're not going to do it. All right, so let's get right into the rest. Rest is so important, but it's only going to take us a few minutes. This is the thing I love about rest. It can change everything, but it's so simple. So when we think of our ATP PC system, and I can't remember if our book calls it PC or CP, it's the same thing. So getting that primary energy system recovered, replenished, the thing that we have to burn through, whether we're sprinting, whether we're running a marathon, those first 10 to 20 seconds, that what fuels our exercise in the body. So after we do anything, we're going to have burned that up, so we can have it 50% recharged after just 20 to 30 seconds. After 40 seconds, it's 75% recovered. After 60 seconds, we're all the way up to 85 or 90% recharged. However, this is the big thing here. It takes 3 minutes to get 100% recovery. So then you sometimes have people who are really fit that are under the misconception that they can recover faster. It's just not true, right? This is just the way the human body is designed. So that's one thing that I have to say all the time, like no matter how fit you are, these rules apply. Why these numbers matter is because we know on both ends of it, how much do we need in the tank for the next exercise, right? So if it's something that they have to give 100% for, they must be 100% recovered to do it. I mean, it won't stop them, right? But they're going to limit their results, and we're going to allow them to limit their results by not enduring the rest time that nobody wants to take. On the other hand, when we're looking at some of the things of like, we want to go fast, we want to get stuff done, we want to be efficient, then we only need to ask ourselves, how little does somebody need to recover? Okay, so if anybody has questions, shout them out. So let's say we're looking at a general health client. Now, the rest ranges that are typically recommended tell us something. This would be like 0 to 90 seconds. So say that we, any of us like present here, we're doing, you know, some of these general health exercises, maybe like picture like a mobility exercise. We likely would need 0 seconds, right? We could just go into the next mobility exercise. So that's where the 0 comes from there, that it's going to be dependent on the fitness level of that client. However, if we have somebody who's just starting, they're really deconditioned, they have health issues, that same exercise may take a lot more out of them. So they might need up to 90 seconds to recover. And that's okay, right? That's in general health, it's just going to be based on client fitness level mostly. Now, when we get to the toning people, they're going to be like 0 to 60 seconds too. I think 0 is low, right? Like for me, for a toning person, I usually do 30 to 60. The thing is, when we talk about hypertrophy, it'll make more sense why we're limiting rest, but in toning, we're not, right? We know our results are going to come from the lifting, not really from the rest. So just give them as much rest as they need to move on. I like efficiency. People don't want to lift for longer than they have to. So just like, you know, the least that they can do while being able to complete the next set or the first set of the next exercise with good form, that we can see that they're recovered enough. That's all it takes. So I usually just set like a standard 30, 45, or 60 seconds for a toning person, depending what kind of area of the template we're in. So hypertrophy, the next three, these are the ones that matter the most. Hypertrophy is 0 to 60 seconds. So think about this. When people are in hypertrophy, they want that muscle growth beyond what is normal, what is natural, hyper, right? So the best way to get muscle growth to explode is to minimize the rest, is to just keep going again and again, more reps, more of the same muscle group. So when we talk about loading, that's why, like if we are doing hypertrophy, you've got to do all sets of exercise before you move on. There's no circuits, right? Like you've got to just keep going. So you're going to get better results with less rest. So this is like always like there's the push-pull with our hypertrophy people to limit the rest as low as they can get it and be able to do the next set with good form, right? That's the thing. Like even when they get to those last couple reps, they cannot lose their form. That's where it's going to happen, reps 8 to 12. But we can go higher if that's what's needed, right? So we kind of look at this as a sliding scale. I think for me, this is the group where it is the most dynamic because we don't really know. And maybe, you know, depending on what kind of day they're having, we might be able to slide it up and down. So let's say that we're trying to do it with 30 seconds. We get to the next set, they can only get 6 good reps in, then we know, okay, that's not enough. So we could try again, 40, 50, 60. So if we come back to this slide, thinking about recharging, if they only need 50% to get the next set done, then okay, 20 to 30 seconds is enough to do it. So usually 30. But if we give them another 10 seconds, it doesn't seem like that long, but that's enough to get another quarter recharge. So we're up to 75. By the time we get to 60, then they're up to 90%. But for hypertrophy people, they're never lifting so heavy that they need 100%. So they never need more than 60%. I'm sorry, 60 seconds rest. Okay, because they never need to recover more than 90%. Okay, so that would be hypertrophy. Now, max strength and performance. Think of what is similar between these groups. If you're maxing out, or even if you're doing pyramid sub-maximal, like maybe 2, 3, 4, even 5 reps, you're still going pretty hard. You've got to have everything that you have to give available to go into that set. So that's why they need to be 100% recovered. Performance people, when we're doing power stuff, same thing. You need 100% in the tank. So that's why they're going to rest 3 to 5 minutes. And it's interesting because like by the book, it says 3 minutes to get to 100%. But I have found working with like only with professional athletes where you could see these like minute differences. Sometimes they do require up to 5 minutes. But once you're working with somebody in such a specialized way, it's really fun, right? That they can study it, you can study it, they can feel it, we can see it, and then we can like figure out how to fine tune from there. But I think in general, I just always start people with 3 minutes. And if they complain, which happens a lot, especially like when we're working with our fitter clients, that they want to work. They don't want to sit around, they want to work. It's hard, but they have to just explain this. So a lot of times I'll show these numbers and let them know that this is not something that I'm deciding. This is just the way the human body is designed. Okay, so just one other thing that's kind of related here for circuits. we'll do minimal rest between the exercises, top to bottom. But then at the end of it, if we're going to repeat the circuit, that's when I'll do the 3 to 5 minutes rest, right? So let somebody get 100% recovered before we start the next circuit. Okay, so before we hop into tempo, let me know if there's any questions. And what I like to do if people really have a hard time resting, or if there's going to be a lot of rest periods, then just put something else in there that's like really low intensity. So that might be a good time to work on mobility, flexibility, some of the easier core or balance exercises. All right. So if we don't have any questions, then we're going to just zip right ahead here with tempo. Okay, so when we are doing tempo, we want to think about control. How much control does this person need? Where are they at in the phases of motion? So I know everybody knows this, but just as a review. So like, let's say we're doing a bicep curl. We have our concentric coming up. This is when we're doing work. We have our isometric at the top where there's no change in muscle length. And then when the muscle is lengthening, relaxing, working with gravity, we're lowering, we're coming back down. That's our eccentric strength. So for a lot of our clients, I think for our group, a lot of our clients really could benefit the most from this eccentric strength development, because nobody ever falls when they're stepping up, when they're jumping up, right? It's when you're coming down. So learning that control is going to be really important. So I think the easy way to do this, where we don't put numbers, we're just going to take one step up for each group. So general health will be slow. Toning, now we trust them, right? They know this, they know how to move, they can pick up the pace a little bit, moderate. Hypertrophy is also moderate. Max strength is fast. Performance is going to be explosive. So if we zoom in on each one, general strength, slow but controlled, right? This is going to be the thing. So think of like our clients the first day that they're ever with us, the first time they ever pick up dumbbells, how they want to just be swinging. There's like a ton of momentum. They're not doing it on purpose, right? But this is where we can see how much they could benefit from learning how to lower slowly, because you can't fake it. You can't use momentum. I think that it really helps to build the best foundation too. I like eccentric stuff for everybody, just as an aside. So once we get to the toning and hypertrophy, just moderate, like that is the most effective speed for building mass, increasing strength endurance, regular, just a regular kind of tempo, I think what we would naturally do. So the thing about max strength, so picture we have somebody that is going to do 1 rep max bench press. The bar is not going to move fast because of the strength speed continuum, right? So we know if we have so much weight, this is going to limit how fast they can move the bar. However, they've got to drive it up as fast as they can. So if they tried to max out at a slow speed, just picture that in your own body. It couldn't happen. So it still uses a fast speed. They're trying. They are producing a fast speed. It's just the weight that's going to be slowing it down. And then for performance, this is where typically we're going to be doing the explosive stuff. So what's really interesting here is that we always have control of both sides of this. Are they going to become explosive with the strength, with the speed, and then we can just kind of manipulate both variables. So we'll get into that a little bit more. With stabilization, this is something that I do a lot when I'm teaching jumping and landing mechanics. That just means whenever we see that we're going to hold the landing for 3 to 5 seconds. Okay, so let's talk now about the part that is a little bit harder, a little bit of a headache. If this is new for you, just take a breath, because I think it's a little overwhelming at first. It does make sense. I just don't like how it's structured. So these are the rules, right? Again, they're not my rules, they're not our rules. We got to just follow them. We could do it that way, like we just talked about, where we're going to tell people slow, moderate, fast, explosive. However, think of the limitation. If we have this client who's doing the dumbbell curls and we want them to lower slowly, they don't necessarily need to lift to do the work as slowly. We want to focus on the eccentric. So the word slow there, it's not enough. So what we can do instead is tell them how long we want each of the phases to last. So let's say we have this general strength person. What I like to do for those people is an up 1, hold 2, down 2, 3, 4 tempo. Okay. When you write tempo with the 3 phases, so if you look at number 2 here, A, B, C, you have to read it backwards. So you start at the end and read like right to left. You could do it the other way, but I think like we're just wired to think of the concentric movement first. So if we were doing this with the letters, the bicep curl, C would be our lifting speed. B is going to be here. How long are we holding before we lower? A, how long does it take to get the weights back down? Okay, so reading C to A. I find that people can handle this. As long as they could just get comfortable reading backwards, it's pretty easy. I think what has unfortunately become more prevalent in our industry is the 4-beat tempo. And there's a reason for it, but it's so hard for people to get. Like they always have to think about it. They're always annoyed by it. So I think we need to know how to do it, but like we don't necessarily need to be using it as is unless it's the right fit for that. So this is the one, this is different. It's what they're adding here. The 4th beat comes from as we lower, there is another isometric at the bottom, right? That this is where like normally I would just call that a rest pause if I want anything to be happening there. Otherwise, it's usually a 0. So normally it would be like up 1, hold 2, down 4, nothing, up 1, hold 2, down 4. But they want to add that second number in there so that every phase can be explained, I guess, represented. That bottom isometric also goes by the name amortization, the amortization phase. It's still the isometric. It's just like the isometric at the bottom. So here, when we're reading this, we start at C. This is totally different than the number 2, the 3-beat one. So we start at C, go to D. So here, what I try to teach people is we're reading it left to right. We're just not starting at the beginning. So we go to C. This is going to be our concentric, up 1. D is going to be our isometric here at the top. Hold it for 2. Now just bring yourself back to the beginning and keep reading left to right. A is going to be our eccentric or lowering. And now B is going to be this other phase at the bottom, the isometric, also called the amortization. Okay, so when would we actually need to use this? When the amortization is not 0. So when we expect something to be happening at the bottom, where it's going to be like a jump with a hold, resting between reps, like if you're doing that rest pause. So I think it's good that we know that it exists. I don't think it's very practical. I will be interested to hear if anybody has had good results with it though. So the way that I typically teach it, like with just a general client, simplify it. So let's say that we have a 2-0-2 tempo. So down under number 4. The 2 with the asterisks. I put the asterisks there so that we could like distinguish between the 2 twos. This is going to be our most common tempo, right? Just for our strength people, our hypertrophy people, classes where without thinking, that's the tempo that you use. Up 2, down 2. No rest at the top, no rest at the bottom. Up 2, down 2. So if we use this the 3-beat way, we would write that 2-0-2, making sure that they understand that the up 2 is in the C position so that they wouldn't get mixed up if there was a different count. Okay, so there's that. But look how we can say it. Like most people just respond better to up 2, down 2. If that's what they're going to be doing, I would just mostly write up 2, down 2. They don't need to know. There's no test for them, right? They don't need to know the tempo. Okay, so then we have, let's say we're doing a 4-2-1. So we know concentric is 1, isometric is 2, eccentric is 4. I would still just explain it the way that we showed it. Up 1, hold 2, down 4. Okay. What you have to be careful here though is that you don't get like too conditioned to use the up downs, right? So where we say up there, we're only saying up because when we're doing a bicep curl, that's the work, right? Is coming down because the weight is beneath us, so the work is lifting it. If we were doing a lat pull down, we would have to reverse, like use different words because the work is coming down, right? So down 1, hold 2, release 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you want to do it this way, just make sure that it works for the exercises, because if they did that the opposite way, like if they just always think it's up 1, hold 2, down 4, then think of what they're going to do with the lat pull down. They're going to let the bar come flying up 1, they're going to hold it at the top for 2, does nothing, right? And then they're going to pull down slowly during the concentric. So those words would switch. I think that's probably the reason why they do it with the slashes or the dashes, because then it works for everything. You don't have to figure out what words apply for that exercise. The only other way that it could work, like say that they're going to be rowing, would be in 1 for the work, hold 2, release slowly, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So let's now look at, if we don't have questions, the most common application for each of the groups. Now remember, this is totally up to you, right? This is why we are the experts, we are the professionals with each individual client. There might be reasons to go outside of this, and all of that I think is good, is acceptable. General health, the most common one is going to be up 1, hold 2, down 4, where we're going to be working on the eccentric control. But we don't have to. We don't want to think of that as handcuffs, right? Especially with more conditioned clients. If, you know, like also we could do things that are going to be longer. So like if I do a banded lateral walk, no matter what level somebody's in, like I really like to do that slowly, where they're going to step out for 4, in for 4. So that would say 4, 0, 4. So lots of variations there. But just like if we're going to pare it down as simple as possible. Toning and hypertrophy, up 2, down 2, 2, 0, 2. Max strength, they have to go faster, so they're going to be 1, 0, 1. Now, toning and hypertrophy people, they might go fast sometimes too. That's at our discretion, but their default number will be 2. The max strength default speed will be 1. Power, we just write with X's, and that will denote that it is meant to be explosive in each of the phases. Okay, so as we come to the Excel spreadsheet here, a few things that I wanted to mention. This is a really good time to use the notes column. So like I don't ever give anybody the 4-beat tempo. Like I think it's just too hard. But if there is going to be something happening in that amortization phase at the bottom, I will write it in the notes. And I try not to write too much in the notes column, because I've found that if we write too many notes, they're overwhelmed and they don't see any of them. But if like through the whole program, there's maybe only 5 lines that have notes, they'll get it. So if we write with stabilization, hold landing 3 to 5, if there's going to be a rest pause at the bottom, we write that. I kind of like eliminate the need to include the amortization phase there. But I think however we decide to do it with each client, I'm a firm believer, like we teach one system and then stick with it. So maybe you love the 4-beat, maybe you also like the 3-beat like I do, but whatever it is, I don't think we could expect our clients to be able to go back and forth between understanding the 3 and the 4, since the order is different. And then, yeah, so the last thing about tempo, I think let's make sure that we are flexible, right? We don't want to bind ourselves to these like religiously. And as long as we know the reason that we're going to be going outside of that, that's all it takes. It just has to be a reason. Okay, so let's look here then at rest and tempo together. So now we can start with the power section today. So all of this group, no matter what they're doing, the barbell jump squats, explosive squat jumps, medicine ball chest pass, we have RPE 10. We know we want them going all out. So that means that we need them to be 100% recovered. So their rest has to be 3 minutes. We also know that we want their tempo to be explosive. Okay, so that's how we would enter those in there. And then when we come down to the strength group, let's say here we have a general health person squatting. This is a good one for them to do the slow and controlled tempo, 4-2-1 tempo. So maybe like I didn't put 0 to 90 here. I wanted to put like an actual example. So let's pretend like this is a very beginner client. So we only have them do, like we know that 0 or 30 seconds is not going to be enough for them. So we write in 60 to 90 seconds. Okay, and then we get to the toning person, and they are going to be doing, they're going to squat their set of 12, that moderate tempo, up to, down to. Regular rest period, 60 seconds is going to be good for them. The hypertrophy group, a little bit different, because here we want same speed, but we want to minimize that rest. So we'll put 30 to 60, but really make sure that they understand, keep it down to 30. If they're working without us, that we're not there to like know. We have to teach them that they have that awareness to know what is enough recovery to go for the next one. And then the max strength people, because they need 100% recovery, they're also going to have the 3 minutes rest, and they're going to be fast, up fast with the bar. Now, like, you know, it's going to lower slowly, Like if they're maxing out, that's fine. We're more focused on the raising period there, but 101, just to denote that it's fast. Okay, so that's a lot of info. Anybody have any questions or thoughts on rest or tempo? The group was quiet today. Okay. If you think of anything, just bring it up. It doesn't even matter if we're on to the next topic. So we're going to do now the progressions. I love this stuff. I really do. Like, and when we're progressing, we always want to like think of this like we got to stay on a track where we're going to constantly overload them, but without overdoing it, right? So we need to maintain that progressive overload while avoiding overtraining. So what are the ways we can do this? There's so many ways, right? This is like limited only by our imagination. We can take these little steps by increasing the number of reps that we have in a set, the number of sets overall, increase in the weight, increase in the speed, or we can change the exercise somehow where the exercise is going to be more complex, or it's going to be progressive. When I do this, like I really like part to whole teaching where we break down complex movements to their individual parts and like master it and then add to it. That's one thing that I would consider in that. So we'll do some examples, but not exactly part to whole. So this is another place that it's a good variable to use that notes field for if there's anything special that we need them to know about the progressions. Okay, so let's do an example. Let's say we have a general health client. They're starting at 2 sets of 12 reps, 10 pounds, right? So let's just say they're doing dumbbell curls and they have 5s. Okay, so 2 sets, 12 reps, 10 pounds. What are some ways that we could progress this? If this is a general health person, my goal is always to like get them up to 20 reps a set, unless there's a reason not to. So I think that's kind of my default. So taking the little steps to get there, we can next go to 2 sets of 16 reps. So each set, just a small increase, they're going to add the 4 reps. Once they get that mastered, then we can overload a little bit more by going up to 2 sets of 20 reps. The weight staying the same the whole time while we're increasing the reps. After they master that, this is a really good point for us to reassess, to do the next 1 rep max test, figure out what direction they're going in, right? And then we can keep it going from there. So if say we're going to keep these curls in their program, what can we do next? So we could maybe adjust the weight where we're going to do the exact same thing, but now we're going to do it at 12 pounds. 2 sets, 12 reps, 10 pounds, or 12 pounds. 2 sets, 16 reps, 12 pounds. 2 sets, 20 reps, 12 pounds. So this is an important area where we have to tell the general health people and the toning people when the weight starts to get heavy, this is where they start to get worried that they're going to be putting on too much mass. And it's just maybe getting out the numbers chart and showing them, okay, you just got stronger, right? So as long as you're staying in this 50 to 70% range or 70 to 80% range, you're going to maybe get more definition, right? Like that's going to happen. Your muscles will get sculpted, but they're not going to get huge because we're still not doing the thing that's going to trigger that. And as people get stronger, if they don't lift heavier, their percent of the 1 rep max is going to be going down, right? So they might be starting at 70%, but then as they get stronger, that same weight for them is no longer 70%, right? That's going to be 65%, 60. Okay, so pretend that we don't want to increase the weight for whatever. We have decided we're going to stay at 10 pounds. What could we do next after we have hit the 2 sets of 20 reps at the 10 pounds? Add a 3rd set, but we wouldn't go right away to 3 sets of 20 reps, right? Like that would be too big of a jump to go from 40 reps total to 60. So we could bring them back down. 3 sets of 12, 3 sets of 16, 3 sets of 20. And then maybe we do the whole thing, 12 pounds, right from the very top all the way through. So I just like this. If they want to be doing the same exercises, if they're comfortable, you feel like this is the best exercise, it's just a nice way to keep changing it. They're going to get the best results that way, but they're also going to see that, like, you know, we're still doing work for them and they're getting better results. Okay, so let's say that we for whatever reason have decided that we're not going to be increasing the reps. They don't want to do a ton of reps. They don't have a lot of time, whatever. So if we have the 2 sets of 12 reps at 10 pounds, the other thing that we could do from there is just bump the weight up, where sets reps will stay the same. So we would go to 2 sets of 12 reps at 12 pounds. Then we could go to 2 sets of 12 reps at 14 pounds, right? Just take the little gradual increases, reassess and adjust the weight. So a lot of times what's happening there is, like, as we're adding the weight, they're getting stronger. So the percent, it's not really increasing that much. It just seems that way. Okay, questions on that? Everybody feel okay there? Even if you want to chat in? Okay, so we'll move on to timing. So we always like start with the goal. This is what I think, like when we talk next time, a lot of the things that we've talked about now will come into, I think, clearer view when we do how to periodize this, because if we start at the end goal, then all we ever have to do is figure out what makes the most sense working backwards, right? So who are the clients that we should increase the reps for? Who are the clients that we shouldn't do that and just increase the weight? So let's say that right now we have a very beginner client, a lot of restrictions, they're only able to do 1 set of 8 reps. If our goal is for them to be able to do multiple sets of 12 reps, then we need to be increasing the reps, right? So go from 1 set of 8 to 1 set of 10, 1 set of 12. Then we'll come back down, 2 sets of 8, 2 sets of 10, 2 sets of 12, right? That we're not, like, it wouldn't make sense for that person to be increasing the weight because we want more reps, more endurance. What I like is just to follow a system. I think whatever it is, we do our best when it's systematic. I think that's what the science shows for us. A lot of times we're just going to be figuring out, like, not only what is the best ideally, but what really fits for this client, for their goals, for however long our period is, right? Because we're going to have to decide, I like to do changes in reps or weight every 2 weeks. That is my preference. So if we do a 6-week cycle, it's really nice because we can do 2 weeks, get them started, get them comfortable. Don't let them plateau, because then for weeks 3 and 4, we're going to give that next little push. Weeks 5 and 6, the next little push. Reassess and then come back to the drawing board. But some small changes can happen weekly. So I will do an example here. We're going to actually go into the core section of our template to show, because some things, like if it's a small enough change and they're working out a few times a week, then yeah, we can make that. We could progress it week by week. So if it is reps or weight, I don't think every week is a little bit too much, right? We didn't even give them enough time to start adapting to it before we overload it again. And we want to also be ready on the other end, where a lot of people are going to need maybe more than 2 to 3 weeks. So I think we all know, we know our clients, slow and steady wins the race, but just don't let them stagnate. Okay, so the only things that we don't want to do with progressions, I don't ever increase weight and reps at the same time. It's one or the other, because I think even in a really fit body, we're only meant to be able to handle a little bit of overload at a time. So that's really going to increase the risk of injury, even if there's really good form, right? They have everything on point with their technique. We're still opening up that risk for injury. So I don't ever do both together. If we're going to be adding a new set, that is the situation where I will not change weight or reps either, because that's going to be enough, right? Like adding that much volume. And we might, like we saw from the examples, even need to decrease the number of reps per set temporarily so that they're not going to be too overloaded that way. And then, yeah, because all of that together is going to come for overtraining. So what are the signs of overtraining? Like we know, make sure that they're not getting too tired during the exercise, that they're not being able to recover for the next exercise, or even bigger, that in between workouts, they're not getting that full recovery. So we know we have to back off a little bit. And then of course, yeah, do not allow for stagnation. So we know that our clients go into one of two camps, right? Like we either need to hold them back or we need to push them forward. So I think it's just keep repeating the same things, teaching them the basic science that they're going to understand what they have to do and why to keep moving forward. But I am a believer in general, slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so what are some of the exceptions? Sometimes we won't include progressions, right? Like we're intentionally not going to do that. Like that is a part of our strategy. And I think this is okay, right? This is totally fine. Like we don't have to, again, force ourselves to do this in all situations. If it is strategic and it has sound reasoning, that's okay. So like picture the people that we're doing the power lifts with. So like last time when we were talking about the compound movements section where they're going to be benching and squatting, the focus there is just going to be on the weight, right? The weight, we want that weight to always be getting heavier cycle by cycle. So there's not really much reason to make the changes within the cycle. It's just get as good at this weight as you can, reassess, and now we'll see, can you lift a little bit heavier? So if you're doing anything with pyramids where it's those kind of exercises that fall under powerlifting, those I just kind of leave alone. I think that they work best that way. It's not saying we can't do it, but that's an area where I would not have a progression. It will look the same every lift for the whole 6 weeks. But we know that real life gets in the way a lot, right? So we have these other issues, client adherence and availability, that can change during the program. So they had the best of intentions. We made the program for what we thought was going to happen, and then life gets in the way. So whether they have an injury, an illness, they're out for a week, they have a personal crisis they have to attend to, or maybe they're just like kind of in one of those mental lulls where they're not as motivated, they're not coming in as much as they should. We have a new client who's overwhelmed, where we can see, yeah, they can physically handle this, but maybe it's a lot for them mentally, so we want to pull back. The other thing, like if we're teaching, especially with technique things, I don't follow the progression rules there, because it's going to just be like when they get it, then we're ready to move on to the next thing. So it might happen slowly, it might happen quickly. The only thing that I do in those situations is to just be really honest with people and tell them like, yeah, okay, so this is happening in your life. We can absolutely adapt around this. We're still going to make sure that we can get the most benefit out of this routine for you. Also just know like, okay, if we have to skip 5 workouts this month that we had planned, it's just going to get us to your goal a little bit slower, so that it's not totally negative, but that they're not going to think that they could still get to the same place in the same time. Okay, last slide, then we'll come back to the template. So just some miscellaneous things. When we're working with power people, this might follow our standard progressions, right? Where we're going to be choosing to increase reps, we're going to be choosing to increase weight. It might not change. It might also not look different on paper if we want to progress the speed. So I think this is where power progressions get a little bit tricky, but it's just like about client observation or measuring. How are we going to measure this? So let's say that they're doing the medicine ball chest pass, because that's what's on our sheet. If we want them to be an RPE of 10, and say that we're using a 10-pound medicine ball, as they get doing this and they get better, they get stronger, they should be getting faster, right? They should be doing that. So if they maintain that same speed in week 6 that they did in week 1, it's not going to be an RPE of 10 anymore, or something went wrong. So I think it gets harder to cue how to modify the speed variable for power, but it's definitely, I mean, it's possible. So a lot of it is going to be just guiding them. How do you feel, right? You need to hit this RPE, and it's a good sign that you have to work harder. It's a good sign that you have to throw that ball faster, because you are more powerful now. So for you to reach a 10 with this set weight, the weight's not changing, the only way to get there is to throw it faster. So I think in those cases, progress is measured in time. So as long as we're timing whatever they're doing from the beginning, we should see that they're going to be getting faster with it over time. So like say that we're doing the set of 10 reps with the medicine ball and they're throwing it to us. We would like maintain the same speed every time, feeding it back to them, so that that's going to be a constant. But if we time our set week 1, it's really going to just be like, how long is it taking to get from them to us? should be getting faster every week, right? So that's one way that we could measure that with time. There's a really good course. I don't know if anybody has taken it for the continuing ed units. WITS has this one about dumbbells for speed and agility. There's some really interesting ideas in there for how to measure time and kind of control the speed component when you don't have really specialized equipment. So that's just a little course, but if you ever need just a few CECs, I would recommend that one. Okay, next we have time-based or circuits. So if we're going to be doing something, like say we're doing something that's going to be as many reps as possible, because I know we have a good number of people that are doing circuit stuff. So you have your clients, they're going to be at different stations, right? They're going to do as many reps as possible. Their progress needs to be measured in reps. So they need to, maybe it's them, like we can't be on them measuring every rep if we have a group, but they've got to count them themselves. And then over time, we want to see, like that's going to be the measure of their progress. So we could even tell them in the beginning, say that they could do 10 reps, 10 push-ups or something the first day. Okay, by week 6, what's our goal? Let's get you up to 16 push-ups. So make sure that they see that they're kind of getting there slowly. If we're doing circuits, like a lot of times I like to do the strength machine circuits, where they're just going to be going from one machine to the next, almost like Curves was, for anybody that's like my age or older would remember. We can still do that, where like that's not going to be time based. So we can still do it where we're going to add reps to those. We're not going to really change the intensity, but like we could add reps to that. You could really change the intensity too. But you know, thinking of the different ways that we could have something set up that's a circuit. Is it rep based or is it time based? Okay, so those would be, I think, as long as we have a way to measure and we can make sure and verify that these little steps are happening throughout the cycle, that's all it takes. Okay, I know we have a lot of people who do body weight stuff too. So what are the ways that we could progress a body weight exercise? Obviously, the number of reps is going to make it harder, but I love doing things where we change the body position. So if they don't have access to equipment, we can still find creative ways to systematically make it a little bit harder. If we change the position, we don't even need to worry about adding more reps. So that just gives us more runway, I think, for the progressions of that exercise before we like exhaust it. We can also take that same exercise, only change the tempo. So if they're doing push-ups and they get faster, that's going to be a progression. Whenever we can add bands, I love doing bands, because we can, you have to teach them this, but you can do systematic progressions with the bands too. So I think the most common way is changing to one that has more tension, right? But we all know that like if you're doing that long term, you're going to get up to the heaviest band and then what, right? So there has to be other ways. So if we're doing like tubing, the tubing with the handles, I like those, because what we could do, whatever that's looped to, we can set the distance. So if we're going to be where it just becomes taut, that might produce like a feeling of a 5 RPE. But if we tell them, okay, get yourself set up here and then take 2 steps to the right, now there's more tension in that same band. So we can make a progression that way. Also, like changing the position and tempo with bands are ways that we can progress there. Okay. Oh no, I want to do the PowerPoint here. I mean the PDF. Okay, so let's come to the power ones. What we have, oh, we maybe should have done these before, but this is kind of backing up a little bit. So for the power group, here's what we had for them. So they started 45%, 6 reps. Set 2, we're going to pyramid it, 40%, 8 reps. Weight goes down, reps go up. And then set 3, 35%, 10 reps. But look what happens out here. These are going to be the barbell jump squats. So weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, nothing is happening. They're blank, right? We want them lightweight, that's pretty lightweight, right? We've already told them we want them to be an RPE of 10. So every week there is room for progression, because they've got to be jumping faster. So how do we do that? We time the set. Okay, so that would be power progression. And then come down to strength, we could do our strength progression. So if we have the toning squat group, here we have first set, 12 reps, 70%, and then we come over, we had second set, 70%, 12 reps. In this one, for whatever reason, say it's a well-conditioned person, they're doing a third set. This is what I call a straight set. Same thing, 70%, 12 reps. So they're doing the same thing, sets 1 to 3. What's going to happen next in weeks 4 and 5 as we come out here, and then, I'm sorry, 3 and 4, and then weeks 5 and 6. Okay, so we could kick the weight up. So if we kick them up to 75%, that's okay, right? They only need to stay within 70 to 80%. So we'll do that, and hopefully they can do them, the 3 straight sets, 12 reps. But if they can't, if they start to get tired, then we'll let them ease off a little bit with the reps, down to 10 reps, just to make sure that they can get there slowly where they're not going to overdo it. Okay, and then we would take that next little step up, weeks 5 to 6, where they're going to go up to 80%. And here we'll probably need to bring the reps down a little bit, but we're going to still be trying to work them up towards 12. Okay, so you see how we stayed in the right range even as we progressed. So this is an example of straight sets, right? So 3 sets every time, 12 reps at 70%. Then bump them up to 75%. So small increase in intensity. Reps are going to be about the same, adjusting if we need to. Then kick them up to the high end of what is allowed in their intensity range, 80%, but the same thing with the reps. And we just bring them down there again if we need to. Okay? Then we have the max strength group. So let's say that this person is doing a pyramid. In the first set, they're going to actually max out. So 1 rep at 100%. Come over to set 2, 2 reps at 95%. And then they're going to come down, third set, 3 reps at 90%. So for this person, remember when we looked at the number of sets that we need, they got to do more than that, right? There's not enough work happening here to elicit the change that they want. So they need at least 4 sets. So we would have to somehow like add this in for them, that there is going to be a set number 4, where they're going to go down to the lower end, 85%, and maybe we're only having them do 4 reps. Okay, so does everybody see how they are staying within their lane, 1 to 5 reps, 85 to 100%. They have to be within there. We're changing it, but we are not progressing it. So out here, when we're looking at weeks 3, 4, weeks 5, 6, no change, because we want them to just focus on repeating the exact same thing and maximizing the results. Okay, so then we come down here. So let's say that we're doing reverse crunches. We have to let them know something, right? Maybe like RPE 6, 7, right? That they're not going to be moving like a turtle, but that it's not going to be max speed. So I would say maybe we give like 45 seconds rest. We let them know the tempo, up to, down to, and they're going to do a set of 12 reps. But then when we put it in italics, that's when it's a maybe, right? So maybe we're going to do this second set of 12 reps. Okay. Let me come over here. And maybe we're going to do a third set of 12 reps, right? Let's pretend that we have somebody who's really fit, that they're going to be able to do it. 12 reverse crunches, up to, down to, rest 45. 12 again, up to, down to, rest 45. Third time, 12 again, rest, be done. But what I like here is that we can, this, you know, I should maybe have put like week 3, 4 here. We can add the variations within the exercise. So we don't need to add more volume of work. We don't need to do it faster. We can just make little changes. So let's say now we're in weeks 3, 4. So we're going to ask them to do the reverse crunch with rotation so that they can work their obliques too. This is why we wanted the 3 sets, because then they could do set straight, second set, left, 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 third set, right, right, right. Okay. And then we can even take another little progression, weeks 5 and 6. If you look up here, you can't see the whole thing there. What is going to change is the order. So now it's set 1, and we're going to come straight, left, right. Repeat, straight, left, right. And we go through that 4 times so that we reach the 12 reps, right? So all of these different ways that we can make the little modifications just to make sure that it's continually progressing. Okay, that's a lot. Anybody have questions or thoughts? Okay, so we'll move on here then just to look at an example of how we could change one exercise. So like I mentioned, I don't change the other variables when we're progressing an exercise with variations. And we will only move from one to the next when they have developed the postural control to be able to do that. So this is just like looking at just one exercise, and this isn't even everything. This is just, I picked just enough to like put it on the slide without it being a ton of words. So let's say that we start somebody with a wall push-up because they don't even have the strength, or they're afraid to do a real push-up. They can progress there by arms elevated. So now maybe they're doing a bench push-up. They get the strength to do it on the ground. So we're going to start on their knees. Then we might do some eccentric push-ups, right? So that they can get that control and build up the strength that will help for them to do a full push-up. They master that. They can move on to hands on the ground, feet elevated. Now we can do some stuff on the ball. Hands on the ball first, feet on the ball second. We can do things like medicine ball push-ups, offset push-ups with the dumbbells, staggered, anything that we can think of. We can even introduce the power variables, like if they're going to do like power push-ups, or some people call them plyo push-ups off the ground. They could do clapping things, right? There's so much that we could do within one exercise to keep them moving. Okay, so I think what we'll do is start the sections here if we don't have questions, and then that will allow us to pick up with the split next time. That's where we'll start, is with splits. Okay, so when we look at our template, we have all of these sections: warm up, power, strength, core, balance, mobility, flexibility, cool down, cardio. The rules of order, this is where there's not too much guidance. I think there's just these few general rules that we want to make sure we're following. And then if we ever go outside of that, or just like knowing why, if we're going to reorder things, that we just have a reason for it. So I think it goes without saying, warm up first, cool down second. I mean, cool down last. And I never ever let anybody out of either of those, because if they say they don't want to do it with us, it means they don't want to do it, right? So I always keep those included. The two big rules are going to be power stuff before strength, because they're going to be fresh. So this is when their work matters the most, but you also want to limit the risk of injury. So the saying there would be fast before slow, right? So power stuff before strength. Sometimes we have strategic exceptions. The only time, like, I am not a fan, I don't know about you guys, but I am not a fan of doing power stuff at the end of a workout, unless I do it with athletes, if I feel like they are safe doing it, where they do like a finisher so that they can work on their power endurance, right? Because it's going to actually apply to producing power late in a competition when they're going to be fatigued. I've done it a lot with myself and others, like with the endurance training too, where like you're limited by how much time you can put in, you're doing multiple sports. So do that, because like having to produce power at the end is going to be the same as like maybe having more time to do a longer workout. But even still, it always makes me a little bit nervous, because I think the risk of injury is going to be high. So I only do that stuff very selectively. Okay, then when we get into our strength section, big before little. So we have fast before slow for power and strength. And then when we're in the strength, we have big before little. So anything that's going to use multiple joints or be like a multi-part movement will come first, and then isolated or single joint things will come second. So it's like, we know this, right? Like, you're going to squat before you do bicep curls. They should always be at the end. Bis and tris should be at the end, because this is going to be smaller. So you should start with what is using the most joints, the most muscles, and then get smaller as you go. Cardio, this is really interesting. I think it is just our choice. What makes sense for them? What do they want to do? Is there a risk to them doing cardio before strength and power, right? Becoming fatigued? Is there a benefit to it? So the last semester that I was able to teach before I became the certification director, we had somebody raise his hand, and he said, let's answer this once and for all. What does cardio come before or after strength? And I said, the answer is, it depends. And I think it's always gonna be that way. So I want to come back now to this one more time and just look at our sections here. So we have our warm up here, and then we have power, strength, core, balance. You could separate those out if you want. Mobility, cool down, cardio. I just make like a separate cardio box at the bottom. So if we were going to switch these around, like if we expected our client to go in a different order, so like say we want them to do mobility in the beginning, then all we have to do is just cut and paste the mobility section and bring it up here. If we have a client who's not doing power, I just take it out, right? Don't give them the impression that there's something that they could or should be doing that they're not. So we just work with kind of, you know, what they're going to be including and make sure that the order is the right, it's the right order for each person. So I think then the last thing that we have to do is this, the first column here for the days of the week. So if you have somebody who is comfortable with looking at the whole template at once, the important thing is going to be to show them when they're going to be doing it. So if they are working out once a week, no problem, right? Because anything that's on here, they're going to be doing. If they're working out more than once a week, we either need to write 1 for day 1, 2 for day 2, A day, B day. If they have fixed workout days, Monday, Wednesday, right? However we want to do that, exercise by exercise, I always go through and write down when they're going to be doing it. So like say the reverse crunches, say they're working out 3 times a week. And we want them to do it every day because it's a core exercise. That's all right. So we could put A, B, C, right? Or 1, 2, 3, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever it's going to be, that they're going to know to follow this top to bottom, right? That's going to be it. It needs to be in the right order because all we need to ask them to do is be able to follow it top to bottom so that there's no work there. The only work that they're going to have to do is this happening today or not? The other thing we could do is, some people do better if we actually separate it out. Here is the A day workout, here's the B day workout, right? That they're going to look different. Okay, so let's finish with our next steps. So I'm going to send over today's PowerPoint. You guys will get the recording and the quiz like usual. I have a new survey, so it's only for this month. Here's what we're thinking. I would love it if we could have more people join the group. I think we have a great group. I think it'll be even better if we could have more people. So we are going to open up the next one to alumni that they can come in. However, they're going to know, I don't want anybody to panic, that they're going to know we're not talking about anything that we've already discussed, right? You guys are paying to be here. We're not going to, they're welcome to kind of like sit in and ask questions about what we're talking about, but that we're not going back and covering anything else. And then hopefully we'll be able to get some people interested that they'll be able to join us. So because they're going to be joining us halfway through the year, I would love to get some feedback from you guys, what you think on how would be the best way to kind of integrate people into the existing group. So I don't want, one thing I don't want is when new people join, I don't want them to feel like they have to just watch all these videos and like are kind of disconnected from the group and then they're thrown into the group. So what I'm thinking is we would have like a crash course for new members that they could have live sessions for what we've covered so far and then be caught up and join the group for the second half. So the questions are kind of geared towards that. So I really just want to get a feel for like how you think the timing is going now. And if you were somebody that's going to be joining, what do you think would be the most effective way to do it? Like what would you want the most? There's also a question there about the timing in general. So it's only 3 questions, but sometimes I've gotten this, you know, I love that we're meeting once a month, that we're a group and that we're staying together for the whole year. But there were sometimes, especially in the first couple months, that I wondered if we met every 2 weeks or if we met once a week and we only did it for 3 months instead of the whole year, would that have been better for you guys, right? So just thinking about in the future, if there's any other ideas that you have of how you would have preferred it, if you could let me know. So it'll only take 1 minute to do the survey if you guys don't mind. Then I don't know if anybody saw on our Facebook group, Jess, I know had to, she had another commitment today, but she posted a really awesome thing on Facebook yesterday or the day before. Really good stuff. So it's like saying, here's how she normally does stuff. How do other people compare to this? So if anybody wants to respond to Jess, I think that would be great. If we want some new questions just to open up some discussion, wait, let's skip the split one because we didn't get that far today. So that could be our question for next time. If you have any success story that you want to share, applying anything that you've learned so far for the group, share that with the group. That would be really great. So we will meet live then again next time, May 9th at 2 p.m. And don't forget, this is just one time, but we will maybe have some other people joining us with the restrictions being like very clear, very upfront. So, okay, any thoughts, any questions? How did everybody do today? I hope that everything was okay here with the chat and the mics, because I find it odd that we don't have any responses. So I'm wondering if you guys are not able to. Okay.
Can you hear me, Ashley? This is Diane.
Oh yes, hi Diane, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Just responding to you. Yeah, I heard everything. I just don't really have any questions. So I don't know if everybody's in the same boat, maybe just a small group. I don't know. I haven't had any glitches. Everything was pretty clear.
Okay, good. Was it helpful today?
Yeah. Actually, you know, maybe I do have one question now that I think about it. If I go back to when you were talking about the rests and the weights, if I can remember what my question was.
Yeah.
I think you said something about, you know, I don't know which category, but let's say normally that would be 30 to 60 seconds. But if they couldn't quite do their 10 reps, you know, have them rest a little bit longer, even if it's longer than the recommended window. But how do you know that it wasn't too heavy? You know, how do you decide between that, adding that rest, or maybe you need to back down on the weight?
Yeah. Great. Because I think if they need more rest, right? If they would need to go outside of the window, I think that would be the tell for us, right? Because then the weight is going to be too heavy. So if they can't recover in 60 seconds, that means that they have been at a work level that was too high for hypertrophy, right? So they should only be between 75 to 85% intensity. So 60 seconds should be enough for them to get 90% recharge. If they can't get recovered enough, then you're right. The weight was just too heavy. Yeah, great question.
Okay, good. Answers that. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I see. I don't know what happened with the chat, but I do see that people posted things into the question section. So thank you. Yeah, very good. Okay, so I'll get our new posts up in Facebook. If anybody has any questions, concerns, comments, anything throughout the month, let me know. And then I'll send the survey link and the PowerPoint right over. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.